He's Tony Dungy from Football Night in America. Tony, before I get to the Saints stuff, let me just ask you, as a former defensive coordinator and coaching against Junior Seau, when I mention his name prior to yesterday, what would come to mind?
Just all-out energy, a guy who made plays all over the field. He was a phenomenal player, and when you talk to guys who played with him, I think the sense of what you saw on the field was only half of it. They talk about his leadership, how he prepared, the hustle, the energy, all of that he brought behind the scenes, and that's why it's so stunning to hear this. But as you're talking, Dan, there's a lot of things that go on in football, and a lot of things you have to prepare for and deal with. And this isn't a new thing. We've been seeing this for years. I don't think it's the game itself, but it's something we have to examine for sure.
But you've been around players, former teammate Mike Webster, at the end of his career, Hall of Famer. This whole depression and whatever roles that concussions play, and I don't know if that'll be the case with Junior Seau. And I've been saying this, I'm trying to follow my own warning here, is don't connect the two. I don't know if there's anything else attached to this with the Junior Seau and his playing career, but you're looking at this big picture here. Did you ever have players who had depression, or did you even sense it while you were coaching them, that maybe it had to do with this style of play?
No, not while they're playing. What happens with me, Dan, is I talk to wives now of players that I had that say my husband is completely different now that he's not playing. I never saw any of this before, the sense that he couldn't get motivated. He wasn't sure what he wanted to do. Wasn't sure about the direction in life. None of that is ever exhibited while the guys are playing. But it's something that we have to look at in these careers. That guys, they are having problems, divorce problems. They are having motivation problems. They're having problems of where do I get my identity from? And I don't think it's the game itself. I don't think it's necessarily the hit. Some of it can be physical, certainly. If you wake up in the mornings and you don't feel well, that's hard to deal with. But a lot more is, where is my identity? My identity's been wrapped up in my football jersey and the team I played for and the position I played for so long. I've got to be able to find it somewhere else.
The Saints' punishments, we've talked about with the coaching staff and front office, but now you have players. Poll question today has to do with what did you think of the punishment to Jonathan Vilma for a year? Your thoughts?
Well, I look at it this way. I know the commissioner has looked at this and looked at it for a long time, and he didn't come out after 2 days and say, here's the penalties. He interviewed a lot of people, talked to a lot of people, got a lot of information and facts, and came to this conclusion. And so I have to trust him. It's not something he wants to do. He's not looking just to sit players down because it makes him feel good. So I have to believe there's some pretty strong evidence against Jonathan Vilma and against the other three players to come up with a suspension. But
is he over-punishing to compensate for the lack of punishment before with something like this?
I don't know. I think there is a sense of making a statement and letting players know that, hey, this is a dangerous situation. It's something that we don't want in the NFL. And there may be something to that we've got to make a statement to let you know that this is not going to be accepted. I have to say this, I've heard, Dan, so many people say, oh, this is part of it. It's always gone on. We had a reunion in Pittsburgh 2 weeks ago. Mel Blount had a fundraiser, and we had players from 4 decades there. And everybody's saying, I can't believe this is going on. This would not have happened with our teams, and it's shocking to a lot of the older players. So to say that it's part of the game or it's always kind of there under wraps, I just don't believe that.
But we hear about the violence. We know it's a violent game. You sign up for that. But
sure it is. You
played for the greatest defensive team in history, in my opinion. But there's certain ways to hit people, but how concerned are you about the game itself with the style of play with the defensive players, with what you can and can't do as we move forward?
Well, the game, it is faster. You've got bigger bodies moving faster, more violent collisions, and everybody knows that. You do know what you signed up for when you go into it. But I think you go into it feeling like, hey, there's a sense of brotherhood out there that we're trying to make a living together, and I'm not trying to end your career, and hopefully you're not trying to end mine. And I think that's the way the game had been played, and I can't imagine it's any different. I can't imagine if you've been out on the field and experienced a knee injury. You know, when we sit there and listen to Rodney Harrison talk about his injuries and things that happened to him on the field, no one wants to go through that, and no one wants to put someone else through that. So I think the commissioner was trying to make a statement. I think it's a good statement, and I think we have to make sure that we do get this out of the game.
It's Tony Dungy from Football Night in America joining us for the Dan Patrick Show. Any incentives for plays of any type when you were a defensive coordinator when you were at the Vikings, and of course then you went to Tampa Bay with those teams?
No, I never did it in the games. I always thought that was kind of what was expected. We expected to make big plays and that kind of thing. But we talked about it in practice. We kept charts. If you came up with turnovers, if you got tip balls, those kind of things, I tried to say that's what was going to cause you to play. You want to play more and get in the game more, get your hands on balls. You want to be in the game, sack the quarterback. And so there's always that incentive. But in terms of, hey, we're going to put some money in the pot, we never did that.
What about what if Derek Brooks or Sapp or any of those guys? Was there ever anything that we're going to take out a quarterback and that you had, you can call it incentives, but there was a bounty attached to it?
No, I mean, you've heard Sapp. I think he's been very vocal about it. I was with John Lynch, on the plane on Sunday, and again, those guys are just it's foreign to them. I mean, their MO was, we're going to go out there and play hard. We're going to hit. We don't want anybody to ever be comfortable playing against us. We don't want you to ever have that as a dream that you'd like to play against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But in terms of anything like that, or taking guys out or hurting guys, I mean, all these guys have been injured, and everybody knows what it takes to come back from an injury and what rehab is all about, and what it feels like laying on the turf, and it just, again, it's not something that those guys. Everybody that I've talked to that has played for me said, if you came out as a coach and said we're going to do this, they would have stood up in the room and said, well, we're not doing that.
Good to visit with you as always, Tony, and we'll talk soon.
All righty. We will, Dan.
Hi, buddy. Tony Dungy from Football Night in America, former NFL head coach, defensive coordinator.